Is declaring war on the drug cartels the only solution to end the overdose crisis plaguing North America? In this video, we delve into the gripping story of Findt Anderson and his take on the extreme measures needed to save our communities from the clutches of drugs. Stick around until the end for some real talk about this controversial topic. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get started.
I was driving in Fresno going through massive withdrawal symptoms, and this is after 23 years of heavy opiate use. I weighed about 140 pounds, was losing teeth. Literally at this stop sign crying, soft voice came in and said, "When are you going to listen to me?" The next day I went into my best friend's office. I looked like hell. I was just a mess. He said, "Your wife doesn't want you. I don't know if I even want you, but I'm going to give you one more chance." And that was the day I found a safer way to live.
All right, what's going on, everybody? That was tonight's guest, Findt Anderson. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Let's bring in Flindt. Flindt, how are you, my friend?
Good, Daniel. Great to be here tonight, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for being here tonight, man. I know you had me on your podcast before. We had a great talk. We popped off for an hour. It felt like 5 minutes. So I'm like, I got to get this guy on the show. Bring this message to the community.
We had a great time, man.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started tonight?
You know, I love your show, man. I always have. I followed it for a while now, and I love the people that are joining in. Look, what you're doing is loud. It's you're telling the truth. This is great stuff, man. This is what recovery is about. And I just love the fact that you're out doing it as loud as you possibly can, brother. I applaud you for it.
Awesome. Well, you know, I love doing it. And hopefully it's what I'm meant to do for a long time, because, man, you know, I get people like yourself coming on every week, and like, it's not just me telling the truth, man. It's people like you coming on and telling your truth. You know, we just passed 150 episodes. So, wow. You know, it ain't just me, man. Without the stories in our community, this Hard Knox Talks wouldn't be a thing, right? So,
well, without a doubt, the stories is what keeps everybody going. The stories is what gives people hope. It gives everybody a lot of hope out there, man. And so we cannot ever stop not telling our story.
Awesome. All right. Well, having said that, let's go.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
All right, before we dive in tonight, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is sponsored in part by Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So, Flindt, in your intro, you talked about finding a rock bottom at a stop sign, and you told us that you were proclaimed the opioid king of Fresno. Now, titles like that don't come overnight.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. So why don't you regale us with how this all got started? Did you grow up around a lot of substance use?
You know, actually, I didn't. What happened was I was born with an ailment that caused me to have a surgery a year from the time I was born till the time I was 13. Then I had 4 more in 1976. And because of that, of course, my opioid receptors were completely screwed up from day one. I wound up having, I think it's 27 surgeries in all on that particular issue. I've also had a total of 35 surgeries. So, you know, again, I know the pain side to this. I know what that's like, but those opioid receptors of mine were just screwed up from day one. So, I don't think I had a chance, to be honest with you. I really don't. Every time I used, I just loved it more and more.
How old were you the first time you experienced it?
Well, again, you know, from the time I was born to the time I was about 7, I really don't remember much. You know, being in the hospital, and in those days it was morphine and then, you know, Tylenol number 3s or number 4s, you know, afterwards for the pain. Until we got, you know, later on in years where where the opioids just got stronger and stronger. And I do remember going through quite a bit of withdrawal symptoms as a young kid, and then of course into my teens. And of course, nobody knew what it was. I mean, everybody just thought I was sick, but I was actually going through withdrawal symptoms for quite some time. And I think that's another reason why I started drinking at an early age, at 13. Again, just to mask all the issues that I was having physically.
So I guess let me rephrase the question a little bit. And you did kind of answer it there a little bit for me, but do you remember when the thought pattern turned from I'm using this as medication to be well to I want to escape and get high?
That probably started coming around when I was about a junior in high school. Look, I was one of those guys that I call myself a man of many talents and a master of none. Played all three sports. I was in the music department. I was in student government. I was all those things. But I'm smoking dope, drinking, using out on one of the side streets with my other crew. All the while pretending to be this great guy that had it all together and had everything going. When in fact I was probably as insecure as the next person. But man, I just hit it really, really well. And again, I grew up in an era where I really didn't deal with substance abuse in our family, but I certainly dealt with the alcohol use. That was huge in our family. And it wasn't a big deal for dad to give you a beer or a cocktail with the rest of the family around. So I think that's how it all kind of got started until I hit my senior year when the shit really hit the fan at that point.
Yeah. So you were living two lives. You just mentioned there you had your other crew. How did you navigate that? Like, did that feel normal to you? Like, was that just like a day in the life to you, or did you know that something wasn't right with the way you were behaving?
No, that to me, that was absolutely normal. Again, one of those guys that I could hang with the stoners or I could hang with the geniuses, in the music department on the other end of the campus. I was just one of those guys that knew how to do that. I knew how to play the game. I knew how to, I guess manipulate would be probably the best word for it. But you brought up something that just really hit home, and that is that living two lives. I had done that since that junior year in high school, all throughout college, all throughout the first probably 30 years of my marriage. I was living two different lives and running basically running two different jobs, 365 days a year. Yeah.
Dustin, we see your question. We'll get to it in a little while as we move further along. It's a good question. Casey says, what did he say here? Casey Jordan says, jack of all trades, master of none. Can you relate to that?
I could relate to that big time, man.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I never seemed to be able to finish anything. You know what I'm saying? It was always, I remember I was actually a voice major, piano minor at Fresno State. When I first walked on campus, my dad was a professional singer. And I remember walking onto the campus, and there was a professor there who actually sang with the New York Metropolitan Opera and knew my dad. And when I walked in, she looks at me and she goes, "Oh my God," she goes, "You're Paul's son. You've got to be just fantastic." And right then and then it was like, you know what, lady, screw you. Okay, I'm not my dad. Here comes the rebellious side, right? And it was like, screw you. I'm not even going to do this now, kind of a thing. It was just odd. I just wouldn't finish anything because I think on one side I also thought I was too damn good, and I didn't have to finish anything because I could always turn to that opioid in particular. I could always turn to that as my friend, as the go-to.
That's interesting because I had like a similar experience, and a little later on in my journey, it was like I didn't have to go to work because all I needed to feel fulfilled was that pill.
Yeah.
And what you just said there, that definitely resonates with me. So
sure. It's you know what, Daniel, it's a love affair is what it is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was never one of those guys that cheated on a girlfriend or my wife. That's just not in my makeup. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely cheated with the drug. You know, we get to a point with that where that little pill, that little 7.5 milligram, that little 10 milligram painkiller is as important as if you are having a full blown sexual affair with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that it is just as detrimental as well,
Mm-hmm.
because my whole life was completely surrounded by that. Did I have
Mm-hmm.
enough? Where was I going to get it? How was I going to get enough for the next day? Was I going to have enough if we had to go out of town that weekend? I mean, and that went on for 23 years. 23 years of on the hunt, what I like to call it.
Mm-hmm. So when did it turn from partying? Like, when did you start to realize that this was turning into a challenge for you, that you couldn't quit? Was that a slow realization, or did something like slap sense into you one day?
No, that was, look, all of a sudden, I call it the imaginary line. Everybody knows where that line is in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can only say it was probably around my mid 30s that I knew right then and there that there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to stop taking any of this. Um, and so lo and behold, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, in those days, it was extremely easy to get as many pills as I wanted. Pharmacies weren't connected. Doctors' offices weren't computerized to one another. Nobody could tell you were getting it from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I could walk in with a prescription for 80 of them to one pharmacy. I could have a prescription for 120 of them to another pharmacy, and nobody was the wiser.
Wow.
I even got to the point to where I was stealing the prescriptions out of the doctor's offices, and I would forge their signatures on there. Never even questioned, not once until much later in my addiction. Because look, even if you're taking 20 a day, 30 a day, and in the last 2 years of my using, when I was taking that 70 to 80 or more, look, those things don't fall out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get them. That's what you have to have,
And that's a job
right?
in itself.
That's a job in itself.
Yeah.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah.
I had a business then, and it was a legal support service business. And what that means is we would serve summons and complaint. We were process servers, summons and complaints, kick out orders, subpoenas. We would do daily court filings for lawyers. I can't tell you how many lawyers we worked for. So
Mm-hmm.
I was busy with that. That's a 24-hour a day job as well, getting things served and getting them served on time. And so imagine that I had to go out and I had to hunt however many down I had to hunt for the day, and I
Mm-hmm.
still had to get that work done. I was busting I would work all day. I might go into one doctor's office at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that doctor might have said, Flindt, you're lying to me. I'm not giving you any. Well, hell, now I got to scramble. Now I got
Yeah.
to maybe go to an emergency room, right, at maybe 10 o'clock at night, not get out of there till 3 o'clock in the morning, so I
Yeah.
could grab just 20 pills out of there. I mean, it was a constant,
Did you ever
constant.
did you ever hurt
Yeah,
yourself on purpose to get pills?
you bet I did. You bet I
Yeah.
did.
So is that how you
You
got
bet I did.
started? Like, did you get started on the pills, or did you like start on the illicit supply and then move into the pills?
No, I started on the pills, and then I went to the illicit side for a long time as well. I
Mm-hmm.
went through my cocaine days. I went through my LSD days. I went through I went through my benzo days.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I always came back to that true love of mine, which was the opiate. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I remember I would take I would stand up against a wall, and I would take my knee, and I would twist it up against the wall. You know how you kind of plant your ankle up against the wall, and turn it to where I could pop my knee out. So
Holy
so
fuck.
so now it's a legitimate injury. Nobody's going to bitch at me. Nobody's going to say anything. Yeah, and I did that more times than you can count, probably.
What'd you learn on LSD?
Not to do it again. Um,
So we have our friend Onyx in the chat here. She's a sacred psilocybin sacred journey facilitator. And
Okay.
we had a wonderful episode with her a little while ago talking all about psychedelics and stuff. So when I hear someone say LSD or any kind of psychedelics, like I ask them, like, what did you learn in there? You know, and some people have wonderful stories, and Flindt says, nah, just it sucked. So when did you find your bottom? How did you earn the name the opioid king of Fresno?
Well, I think it was because and again, I don't say this with any arrogance, but I'm born and raised in Fresno. I know a lot of people. My wife's family is huge. My family was huge. We've been here for generations, um, and um, and there wasn't many people out there that didn't know that I was an opiate addict. It was just kind of out there that I was. And again, when you're out there taking 70, 80, 90 pills a day, that gets out in the community. People know kind of what you're doing. Fresno is one of those places that it's big, but it's also very homegrown. It's a lot of people know each other. So and Daniel, look, when it comes to the bottom, I'm a firm believer that there's always 10 more feet to dig. I don't think I reached my bottom as much as I reached a point where I knew that if something didn't happen, and if I didn't start to change, that death was right around the corner. And to me, death is the bottom. It just doesn't get any deeper than that.
Yeah.
And right. And so when I had that awakening sitting there at that street corner, look, it still took me a while, to come to terms with all of this stuff. And even though that moment was there and I remember it like it was yesterday, there was nothing in that still small voice that said, this is going to be easy, or this is going to totally change your life. I didn't know whether I was going to make it or not, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought that I had done so much damage to me physically that I didn't know how I was going to pull myself out of this thing. And I think in today's world, what we're not doing is we are not addressing the long-term health effects that are caused in particular by opioids. We are not giving people the right information as it pertains to that. And what I mean by that is I think we would rather say, okay, let's keep somebody on long-term Suboxone. Let's keep somebody on methadone. As long as we're keeping them alive, as long as they're going to have at some point to have a chance at recovery. But we're literally saying it's okay to I know people are going to disagree with me on this, but I think what we're doing is we're telling people to go ahead. It's okay to keep using until you make that decision. But while you're waiting to make that decision, what we're not telling them is that this is what you could possibly going through: heart issues, bowel issues, sleep disorder, fractures, all increased pain. It's called super tolerance due to opiate use. We're not giving people that right information. So, and I know that was kind of a long-winded answer there, but again, I'm so passionate about what I do and what I want to tell people, because I don't want people going through what I went through, man. Most of us don't make it. Most people that go through what I went through, they don't make it past 40.
Yeah.
They really
That's
don't.
a fact. Let's take a quick break here and look at some questions. Okay.
Okay. First one that we have up here is Dustin Flaming. Thank you for your comment. Sorry, I can hear myself in my ear now.
Yeah, the sound is all messed up. It's all messed up over here.
Oh, sorry, Michelle Plum. She wants to know, how do you stop take the first step. How?
Look, I think the best way is simply this. We all know that most of us are not going to be able to stop taking an opioid just because we want to. There is way too much physical pain, emotional pain, trauma associated with stopping the use of these things. Plus, it's not good for you physically to do that. My suggestion is always a treatment program, always with a short-term taper, normally using Suboxone and other medications to taper off of that. Because look, no matter how you look at it, at some point that opioid has to come out of your system if you want to stop completely. If you want to be free, totally free from it, at some point you're going to go through a very, very small amount of withdrawal symptoms if the detox is done properly. And I know there's people out there that don't have insurance for that, or they don't have the cash price for that. My suggestion is that there's got to be someplace in your area that could possibly be doing an outpatient detox that would take a governmental insurance policy. That would be my suggestion to do it. But you always do it under the care of a doctor that actually knows what they're doing. Again, a doctor that is going to want to get you off of that as correctly and as quickly as possible.
Yeah. It's a little different up here in Canada. We do have government funded treatment facilities. The wait list is usually really long, and sometimes the services provided aren't spectacular, but you know, we have a system up here that demands us to accommodate it rather than the system of service accommodating the people who need the services. But there are ways. Get on the list, right? Like if you want to receive these services, get on the list. Try. There's support groups out there that can assist you. They're not medical professionals by any means, and nor should you assume them to be. But yeah, there's really no easy answer to that question, is there? It's so multifaceted.
No, there really isn't. Look, this is the one thing I can tell you is that even though you think you're going to die, you want to die, the withdrawal symptoms are so painful, but you're not going to. You really don't die from opioid withdrawal. You can die from benzodiazepine withdrawal. You can die from alcohol withdrawals. But now, can you have a stroke? Can you have a seizure from opiate withdrawals? Yeah, you can. That's why I suggest that it has to be done medically. But this is also not a foot race. Okay, it doesn't have to be a foot race. But there's look what we tell around here about the P.A.I.N organization. Tell the fucking truth. Okay, that's our tagline. Right. So I'm not going to sit here and tell somebody that it's not going to be a little uncomfortable. Right?
Does it say that? Do you have that on the wall somewhere? Like, is that like underneath your brand? Really? Is it really?
I do. Tell the fucking truth. That's it. Okay. Right there.
I gotta see a picture of that sometime. I'm going to post that shit up on Facebook.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wish that person well. I really do. I mean, Daniel, I wish I could just take it all away for somebody, and we can't. Man, I wish I could. I really do.
So in the intro, we heard a little bit about your bottom. You walked into your friend's office, and he kind of told you he told the fucking truth.
Yeah.
And you ended up in the Betty Ford Clinic. Now tell us a little bit about that, because I mean that's quite a renowned facility, and it's been around for ages and ages, and all of the most elite have walked through those doors. What was it like for you?
Well, again, another interesting story. That was my third treatment center that I had attempted, and this was my best friend. And when that day, I'll never forget it. He said, "I'm going to get you somewhere." And like you said, your wife doesn't want you. I don't even want you, but I'm going to take you to my house. And we went to his house, and he made the phone calls, and he got me in. And he wound up paying for it. I had lost it, pretty much lost everything at that point.
Mhm.
And we walked in. He flew me down there. He looked at me and he said, I love you. He said, you're my best friend. He said, I love you, but if you ever wind up in the hospital due to your drug addiction, I'll never, ever speak to you again. He said, do you got that? And I said, yeah, I think I do. And he said, okay, I'll see you in 30 days. And I turned around and I walked in. And that's what began the journey right then and there. Betty Ford Center is, it's not a tennis camp like everybody thinks it is. You know, it was very basic. Betty Ford herself designed that entire place to replicate the treatment center she went in at a naval base when she got clean and sober. So when you walk into those rooms, you basically have a single bed, you have a small desk, you have a small closet, you have a bathroom, and that's it.
Oh, the
And there's
treatment center hospitality.
you right.
Yeah.
and I actually met Betty Ford at one of the sessions there, and she told the story when she went into treatment. You know, here's the first lady.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. You
Yeah.
met Betty Ford.
I did. This
Huh.
was 2001. She's about 4'2". She's just, it's a little tiny thing. And I
Firecracker,
sat
I'm
right,
sure.
oh, exactly. And I sat
Yeah.
right next to her during this one session. And as
Mhm.
she tells the story, she's walking in with Secret Service and all of her luggage. And she's walking into this naval base treatment center. And there's a nurse in front of her. And as they walk into the room, the nurse says, Mrs. Ford, you can put your clothes in that closet right there. Now she's got like 10 bags. Okay. And there's this little closet. She goes, well, miss, where am I supposed to put all my clothes? And the nurse looks at her and says, well, shit, Mrs. Ford, why don't we just tell the rest of these ladies to move all their crap out so you can put your crap in?
Oh, yes.
And Betty Ford right there, she looks at us, she goes, I got it right then and there. She
Mhm.
goes, I got it. And so what she did was she told her Secret Service, take the rest of the clothes out. I'm here. And that's how she designed the rooms, at least at the Betty Ford Center in Palm Springs.
See, and I can relate deeply to that. Not necessarily that I had 10 bags of clothes walking into the treatment center, but I was definitely the kind of like, I was the needed your ass kicked kind of guy. Like, and I still do lots of times. Like I need my ass kicked regularly, but to have that sit down, shut up, this is how it's going to be mentality, that worked for me, you know, and I'm not endorsing it for everybody. Everybody has their own walks, right? But like for me, like
Right.
when I hear stories like the sit down and shut up, I just smile because I love that shit.
You bet. Look, and here's the other thing. And again, for me, right? I mean, I'm a smart ass. Okay. I think I got everything by the balls. You know, I'm good at this, good at that, blah, 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 and I'm good at nothing. But when I walked into that center, I literally had a talk with myself and I said, you're going to shut up. You're going to listen. Okay. And you're going to do whatever they tell you it is to do. And you're not going to argue, because I can argue with the best of them. And I'll tell you something. Did I agree with everything they did? No. Was I happy with everything they did? No. But let me tell you something. Whatever they did had a lifetime great effect on me. End of story. And I think that's where most people today, they don't want to give up that right, that freedom, whatever it is, to be able to argue back or saying you're doing something wrong. I walked in there going, look, this is what got me here. What these people, they have to know better than me.
Yeah. First thought wrong.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Got Dustin here saying, sit down, shut up, get in the van. The Victory Outreach motto. we got some questions here, talking a little bit more about the fentanyl crisis, and we'll definitely get to those questions. But we're going to hear a little bit more of Flint's story before we do. So tell us about what it was like getting out. Like once you got your ass kicked around those rooms in the Betty Ford. You walk out into the world. Were you like, I'm recovered now, I can go about my life? Or did you run to the fellowships, or what did you do?
Well, the very first thing I did when I got in the van and they were taking me back to the airport is I told the driver to pull over at this liquor store that's up here on the corner. You should have seen the look on his face. Okay, the guy's jaw drops. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't had caffeine in about 30 days. And so the first thing I bought was a 6-pack of Mountain Dew. Everybody knows Mountain Dew's my drink. But that freaked this guy out because what do you mean pulling into a liquor store? When I got home, look, I walked into a snake pit, basically. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. Um, I had done some real damage along the way here. And I didn't think I had anything by the tail at that point, Dan. It was, I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. I got a sponsor. In fact, Betty Ford had a temporary sponsor waiting for me when I got to the airport. So I looked at this guy. He was about the size of a garage door, and I said,
You think maybe she knew what you
want me to-"
needed?
Yeah, exactly. I go, what do you want me to do? And he goes, I want you at 90 meetings in 90 days. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, really. And, you look at the size of this guy. I said, brother, I'll do anything you want me to do. And so that's what I did. But I was lost. I got to tell you, look, 30 days in a treatment center is never enough. If I had to do it all over again, and if I had had any financial, means in those days, I should have been there at least 6 months to a year. And I know that's pie in the sky thinking. Most people can't do that because it was rough. I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to have a normal conversation with somebody. I didn't know how to even communicate with the woman I love the most and the woman that I've known the longest. I mean, my wife and I had known each other since we were 16. And I didn't know how to communicate. I had 2 sons, 19 or excuse me, 18 and 13 at the time. That this was not a good relationship at all. Because of, I was never physically abusive or anything like that, but I was verbally abusive. I was always gone. And I didn't know how to repair any of that stuff. I literally, Dan, put my head down and just walked forward. And wherever I was led, I was led.
Weathered the
It's
storm.
just that, yeah, just and barreled through many nights of many tears, not knowing where to turn, who to turn to. Luckily, I had my best friend, who I mean, I could tell you the world, everything about this man, but the bottom line is he's just my friend, and that's where I turned. I wish everybody would have a friend like that. But like I said, it was rough, and it took a couple of years before I really started getting on the recovery train.
Let's look at a few more comments. Let's see what we got here. Oh, and Donna's about 20
Sorry,
seconds.
I was looking at some other comments, and also I'm listening on my phone, so there's a massive delay between your guys' conversation and what I'm actually hearing. I
So
just
anyways,
looked up and I noticed the camera's on me. I'm like, oh shit.
So anyways,
I told you, Flindt, it was going to be a ride tonight, man.
yeah.
I'll just
read the comments
Okay,
tonight.
please
I'll just
do.
read the comments tonight. Yeah, we'll get the sound figured out later. So Onyx, my friend, Onyx says, even snakes shed their skin. Old versions of yourself to become new. The old version of yourself.
Yeah, well said.
And we've got Elizabeth here. Thank you for the comment, Elizabeth, our resident nutritionist. Says, I just want to throw in nutrition with healing. The body cannot heal.
She's right. She's absolutely right. I mean, diet, exercise, all those things, are so important in one's recovery. It's look, but here's what I take on that, and I agree with her totally on that. And here's the example. I had open heart surgery. I've had it twice now. Okay. And the first time when the nutritionist walked into my room, she said, okay, this is what you can eat. This is what you can't eat. I said, you might as well get out of my room now. I said, because there's no way, all right, that I'm going to be able to stay on this diet. Now, 8 years later, when I had my second one, it was a little better, right? And I started exercising. I started doing some of those things, and I started eating a little better. But like anything else, we always kind of start out gung-ho with things, and then we have a tendency to fall off. At least I do, right? And that's why I try to preach as much as I can about balance and recovery. And I know that's an age-old saying, right? But it's true. There has to be balance in everything. I have found in my own life and with other people that are in recovery, we're balls to the wall. We're all in, or we're nothing. Okay. No matter what it is. I'm not going to drink one Mountain Dew. I'm going to have 10. Okay. I'm not going to do 2 lines of cocaine. I'm going to do an 8-ball. I'm not going to take 6 pills. I'm going to take 60.
Does anybody ever just do 1 line of cocaine? Like, does that happen in this world? I don't think I've ever seen that. Just like, oh, I'll just have one and then I'm good. Like,
right? Never.
Yeah.
So again, nutrition, all those things are it's a balance thing that I think that people have to get to. Yeah.
Now, again, back in the intro, we were talking, or you talked a little bit about hearing a voice on your darkest day. You were sitting in the car, you were crying, and you said a soft voice came in and said, "When are you going to listen to me?" Now, I can only assume you're talking about God, so to speak, whatever you choose to call it. How did that follow you into your recovery? Like, are you still a spiritual person or a religious person? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I am. And here's what's interesting. I always have been. I have always had a faith, and I mean, look, I like I told you earlier, I was a voice major at Fresno State, vocalist. I've sang on praise teams. I've sung in choirs, and I did it while I was using, by the way, and I had to walk away because of my own hypocrisy. But my faith has always been there, always. And yes, it had taken me. I had the faith through my using when I started this recovery path, and all the way through, right up until this very moment. But I also believe that God, my God, He literally is a God of choice, and He's going to allow me to make whatever choices I want to make. In my opinion, He will still be there. He will never forsake me. He will always be there with me. And it's my choice whether I follow Him or not. But I'll tell you what, Dan, when I follow Him, things have a tendency to go a heck of a lot smoother than when I don't. And even if there's a bump in the road somewhere, and there's plenty of them still, okay, I know that bump in the road is a lesson that I need to learn.
Yeah. So, and I've heard this before, and I somewhat agree. Like, if you want to talk program, and we can talk that if you want, but there's a step that says I turn my will and my life over, right? And so many people's like, I believe this is more of a partnership. Like, I think that I have to participate in this relationship that I have with the universe around me. Like, I can't just turn it all over. Like, they say the acceptance is the key to all my problems. I'm not so sure. If that was the case, I'd probably still be high.
Right.
So
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just these cliche sayings. They certainly can be twisted and contorted into almost nefarious purposes, really.
Yes, they can. Absolutely, they can. It's sort of like I tell people, I've never seen God do his "I Dream a Genie" move, and do the whole routine, and then all of a sudden the addiction goes away, the withdrawals go away, all that stuff goes away. No, it doesn't. Again, it was our choice, no matter the reasons why. It was still our choice to put this crap in our bodies, and it has to be able to come out somewhere. I also get parents a lot of times that will say, because we have, family support groups here. We've had them for almost 15 years. I'll have parents say, well, maybe that's just God's plan for my child. And I will say, no, that's not God's plan for your child. God does not want your child to be sick. God does not want your child to be addicted to drugs. Okay. It's not what he wants. He wants us to be joyous. He wants us to be free. We're the ones that are making this decision. Now you can get the argument, well, there's a mental health side to it and blah, blah, and you can, okay, all of that stuff. But until we start accepting responsibility for what we've done to ourselves, I don't think, again, my personal opinion, I don't think that any of us are going to be able to attain that level of sobriety that we're all looking for until we accept responsibility for what we did to ourselves. Now,
So let's
call it my age, call it whatever you want.
Could I just interject and say, I think that right now would be a good time to address Dustin's questions?
Yeah, we were just going to get there. Yeah. So anyways, let's flip the page and talk a little advocacy here.
Sure.
So Dustin says, can we please discuss the fentanyl epidemic that is affecting so many of us on the West Coast? Where I live in Orange County is the capital of this epidemic. I have buried 2 little brothers in 2 months. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. Well, Dustin, look, my friend, that is, we're in the epicenter, okay, of this disaster. And I do believe right now, look, God, I could go crazy on this one. I have been preaching about fentanyl for the last 8 years. And nobody was listening 8 years ago. Not saying I'm this great wizard or anything else that knows all. But I've been yelling about this thing for 8 years. My office manager here lost her son 7 years ago to it when nobody knew what this stuff was. Because back then is when it started to come in via the East Coast by way of Russia, before China even got involved with it. But fentanyl today, I think there's 2 sides to this to this thing. Well, there's more than 2 sides, but I think we are well past the awareness stage, even though we still have to come out and we still have to talk about it. But it's time to put things into action here. Okay. Everybody knows about fentanyl. Everybody knows that it can kill you. Everybody knows that there's pills laced with it. They're M30 pills. Everybody knows cocaine is laced with it. Everybody knows fentanyl is in everything. So when are we going to make the changes to actually attack the issue? And what I mean by that is this. Are we ever going to win the war on drugs? I don't think so. Right? I don't think so.
It's turned away from the war on drugs and it's turned into the war on people who use drugs, really, is what's happened.
Correct. But let's just take that one out of the picture just for a second, okay? Because the last thing we want to do is criminalize drug users, okay? Because they're not criminals, they're not deviants. They are human beings, okay, with a problem that we need to help, and we need to help get off of this crap. But this is my opinion. When you're fighting a dragon, you don't start by cutting off the tail. You start by cutting off the head. And I don't care what anybody says. If we don't start attacking, and I mean this, start attacking the cartels, if we don't start securing our borders, if we don't even start going after China with this thing, all right, this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And here's a fact for everybody. This is from DEA's lips to my ears. There are less than 5,000 DEA agents worldwide working on the fentanyl epidemic. That is a fact. Now, and what I mean by all that is if we get 250,000 fentanyl pills off the street, that's saving a life or several. If we get 500,000, that's saving somebody else's life. It's giving somebody else another chance at life. How do we not go after this? We are the strongest country in the world. We are able to protect our borders if we want to. I just don't think we want to be honest with you.
Well, and the thing,
Because we can sit here.
the matter is, and maybe our opinions might differ here, but the more we take off the street, I mean, we're actually helping the drug trade by taking drugs off of the street, because then people just need more drugs, right? Like every time there's a big drug seizure, I'm sure there's somebody down there being like, thank you, because now we get to pump more drugs in. So I don't know,
Right.
like that. What are your thoughts on like regulated supply? What are your thoughts on safe consumption?
Well, first of all, let me start with this. I agree with you. It opens the doors for more drugs coming in because we're not stopping at the source. We're not stopping at the supplier.
Mm-hmm.
Those drug busts that we're getting are probably given to us by the cartels.
Like a decoy.
And I'm not joking when as a decoy.
Mm-hmm.
Until we literally go in, and I know people don't agree with me on this, and guess what? I don't care. Okay? I really don't care anymore. I was at 2 funerals last week.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to 26 altogether of fentanyl deaths. How many more are going to have to die before we actually take action against some of these people? Look, China did not start the heroin problem, by the way. It was Britain that did it. Okay. And they're the ones that got China. This is how interesting this whole thing goes. And China literally stopped their heroin addiction problem. I'm not crazy about the way they did it, but they locked up everybody up in the 1890s. But look how it's come full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's coming from there into the United States and elsewhere, just not the United States.
So I have a friend, and I was speaking with him a little bit before the show. His name's Rantid, and he says we cannot take something away from the people without giving something back. And that's where I was sort of going with the safe supply and the regulated. I try not to say safe supply because it's really not safe. Regulated supply and safer consumption, supervised consumption sites. You can see I'm trying to change my language around these things. So what would that look like to you? I mean, it almost sounds like you want to go off like torches blazing down and start like taking people out. That's dangerous. But what would be the solution? Like, okay, suddenly all the drugs disappear off the streets. Now what?
Okay. So look, there are people out there that are never going to be able to stop. Okay. Mm-hmm. For whatever reasons. I don't have a problem with long-term supervised use if it is done. And again, because Dan, there really is no answer to any of this. Mm-hmm. To the 50-year-old, 60-year-old and up. Where I take issue with this, because I'm looking at this from the addict standpoint, as a recovering drug addict, if you gave me safe supply, safe consumption place, I'm going to go into that consumption place during the hours of 8 and 5, and I'm going to sit there and use all day long. And then, of course, from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., right, I'm going to be wandering the streets, still doing the same thing I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So, where I differ in all of this is strapping 20-year-olds to a narcotic for the rest of their lives without being told what the ramifications are. Meaning, long-term methadone. And the reason why I know this stuff is because I was on that too. Mm-hmm. You've got a 25-year-old that is now going to be on methadone for the rest of their life. And let's say that person now turns 30. First of all, you can't go, you can, but if you go somewhere, at least in the United States, if you go somewhere, you live in Fresno, you're going to a clinic here, you're getting your methadone on a daily basis.
Liquid handcuffs, man. Liquid handcuffs.
liquid handcuffs.
Yeah.
You're out of town somewhere for the weekend, you can't, and you forget your methadone, you are totally screwed.
Yeah.
Totally screwed. You can't walk into another clinic and get your dose.
Mm-hmm.
You're
I
done.
mean, it's certainly not ideal. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a good way or the healthiest way to live. But I mean, considering the alternatives, if we're gonna talk about illicit supply or methadone, I would much rather see that 20-year-old on methadone, right? But the idea of just cutting off the supply and like I can't see that happening. I mean, these are smart people. They'll find a way to get it in. There'll always be a way. But
there's always going to be a way for people to get the drugs in. Look, I'm not ever even going to debate that side of it. All right, there's always going to be a way.
Mm-hmm. We've got a comment. Sorry, we got a comment coming in from Barb. Barb, my friend, good to see you. Barb says, we haven't seen that outcome from sites open in Canada and operating supply programs now. So that's good news.
That is good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like, I have to agree. We can't, like, we're supposed to meet people where they're at, right? Naturally, if we want to bring someone into a safer way to live, we need to indeed meet them where they're at. Now, I just think that it's important that we don't leave them there. So what would that look like to you then? We get someone.
Look,
go ahead.
No, I don't want to leave anybody behind either. Okay. I don't. That's not what this is. I just believe that we are doing such a piss poor job in the treatment industry and taking care of our citizens, of leading them down the path that is going to make them successful. We are a recipe for disaster when it comes to the treatment world. I own a treatment center. I can't tell you how many times we can't do the work we want to do because we're handcuffed.
Yeah. Because
that poor person cannot spend the time that is necessary, okay, to get the help that they need. This is not a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day program. This should be a 6 month to a year program for people that are in long-term substance use. Okay, I am never going to disagree with that at all. We are doing a disservice to our citizens in that regard. And until we, at least in the United States, can change the insurance industry to at least half-assed be on our page with this is never going to change. So these questions that are popping up right now are going to be continually debated for years to come, because we don't even have a legitimate solution we can give everybody right now.
Yeah.
That's about the best way I can put it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what time is it? I lost track of time. We're coming to the end already.
I'm having fun.
Yeah. I gotta say, I think it's pretty radical for the idea of, like, attacking the cartels and stuff like that. That would be a bloody battle, and I'm not sure that's one that we could win. I don't know. Yeah. So
maybe not.
Yeah, you caught me a little off guard there. I don't even know what to say to that.
Well, it's because again, Dan, I believe that these are the questions that have to be raised. All right. I really do. They at least have to be raised. They have to be discussed. They have to be analyzed. They have to be see if they're viable or not. Because again, we're literally doing nothing to stop the influx of those drugs coming over the borders into the United States. I don't know what it's like in Canada. Okay?
We have drugs here too, lots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're getting up here too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But and again, and I deal with so many parents that have lost kids to this, that these parents are screaming for something to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get so lost in the fact of what not to do, that we're not coming up with answers of what we should be doing with this. And when somebody is in my position that has to sit there and talk to a parent that is lost, and some of them have lost not only one child but two children to this thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's more than difficult, let me tell you.
Yeah. We've got Joe Pelche in the chat. Joe saying, stop the cartels, change the U.S. insurance bullshit. You're ambitious, but the passion in your voice and the way you go at it, you're the guy to fight them. So, you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
Oh, he can hear you. Joe's a good friend.
Sober Motivation makes a very good point here. It says treatment needs better outcomes before insurance will spend the money.
Isn't that interesting though? Isn't it like how it's like I need to be better before I can qualify to get help to get better, and that's a fact. And like it's how can we improve the outcomes without improving the funding to be able to provide better services with that top shelf care, with the top shelf service providers that need to live their lives. They need to be supported in their efforts.
Right. Look, here's what insurance companies do. They are actually now, they're not even giving us, they're not giving us 20 days of detox. They're giving us 10 days of detox. Maybe,
I know. I've heard it's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So now they're giving us a total of 17 days of detox and residential. Now they're going to pay for outpatient over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they want you out of detox and residential as quickly as possible. But if you relapse, they're going to pay for that all over again too.
Yeah.
So why not just pay for this, and hopefully it will take on the first try if we leave that person in there long enough.
Well, I mean, the cost of, if we're going to talk about it as a society, like as a whole, like just the cost of the insurance, that's like minuscule compared to the costs of cleaning up the wreckage. We display some pretty toxic behavior from time to time when we're lost in that life, and the justice system pays for it, the healthcare system pays for it, like all of these things. Like the not funding treatment centers is a very short-sighted way to save money.
It is, and let me just take it again a couple steps more. As a treatment center owner. And especially in the state of California, in the good old United States of America, let me tell you something. When it comes to salaries, when it comes to insurances, when it comes to food, when it comes to the state licensing, when it comes to all of those, the property taxes, the payroll taxes, everything else, monthly nuts for this thing can run into $500,000 and more. And when we have a Medi-Cal system that's going to pay us $135 a day for a client, we can't take that client. So it has to be profitable enough. And I know I get an argument on this because, everybody hears the stories about how all these treatment centers are making millions of dollars, and some are. And I'll tell you this right now, they're making them because they're fucking the system. All right, because they're screwing the insurance companies. Not all of us are making that kind of money in this thing. In fact, most of us are not. Mm-hmm. And that's the reality. So you have to make it affordable for the client. You have to make it semi-profitable for the treatment center.
Got to eat.
And you have to, right? You have to. There has to be that balance again, or else it's just going to stay the same. And we have to fight the system every single day. Fighting the state of California, I'd rather go to a war than try to fight the state of California every day. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we could pop off all night about this, I'm sure, but I think we'll cap it there. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
You bet. You bet. Look, sobriety is a wonderful thing. It truly is. It is. I am grateful to be here. I want to thank you for having me, first of all, because years ago, I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing. I don't know where I would be if I wasn't involved in this. I am truly blessed to be able to help people and to share whatever knowledge I have left, out to the world. We all do this, Dan, because we care. That's the reason why we do it. This isn't to get in a pissing contest with anybody. We do this because we care, and it can be done. It's attainable. For those that are listening, that think, why me? Why am I the only one going through this? You're not alone in this. We've all been there, and you can do it. If somebody even wants to reach out to me, man, you got my info. Give it to them. They can reach out to me. My phone's on 24 hours a day, and I'll talk to anybody.
I'm going to put that to the test. I'm going to call you
Put it to the test.
I'm going to call you at 3:00 in the morning just to be like, hey.
Call me because my phone's right there, brother.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for sharing a bit of your journey with us. Thank you for getting real with us about drug policy and about all of the things that are wrong. Hopefully that we can come to some solutions, and man, I hope we can do better, man. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Take care, man.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, if you're getting something out of what we're doing here, you can find us on all audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or live and interactive right here on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch TV. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Hey, this is Hard Knox Talks.